Picture scrolling through Instagram and stepping into two completely different worlds. One feels soft, emotional, and fragile, while the other bursts with energy, confusion, and raw confidence. On one side, Hailey Bieber opens up about her new life as a mother. She admits that becoming a mom wasn't something she and Justin had planned, and the reality has been far tougher than she ever thought it would be. She talks openly about how overwhelming it is, even more than she had imagined. On the other side of Instagram, Justin Bieber shares a series of photos from a trip to the woods. At first, it looks like a regular weekend retreat, with trees, fresh air, and freedom away from the city. But then, in the middle of those pictures, appears a photo that immediately stops everyone in their tracks. Justin standing shirtless, wearing sweatpants and slippers, holding what looks like a large rifle. No caption, no explanation, just the image. That single post instantly exploded online. Fans froze, trying to interpret what it meant. Was it an insensitive moment, a cry for help, a piece of performance art, or simply Justin handling life in a completely different way than his wife? When people first glanced at Justin's photo dump, it seemed harmless. Just nature shots, nothing unusual for someone looking for peace. But that one picture with the gun changed everything. The contrast was shocking. There he was, relaxed in loungewear, holding a weapon that instantly raised questions. Why did he post this? Why now? What message was he trying to send? Where was Hailey? Where was their baby? Because there was no explanation, fans started creating their own stories. And most of them weren't flattering. The timing only made the reaction louder. Just hours before Justin's post, Hailey had shared a gentle, warm photo of their 11-month-old son. Her words were emotional and real. She confessed that pregnancy wasn't something they had planned, and that motherhood had hit her harder than she expected. It wasn't only about sleepless nights or physical exhaustion, it was about the overwhelming shift in her entire life. She admitted she wasn't fully ready for how much everything would change. That honesty struck a chord with people. It felt refreshing to hear a celebrity, especially someone as famous as Hailey, strip away the perfect image and admit that motherhood is both wonderful and incredibly difficult. Her post captured the truth that even women who have resources and support can still feel like they're drowning under the weight of it all. Then, suddenly, Justin's gun photo appeared. For many, it felt like whiplash. One moment, a mother's vulnerability and honesty. The next, her husband's image of force and power. The sharp contrast between the two made comment sections explode. Some people were angry, others were confused, and some turned it into a joke about the absurdity of the whole situation. But beneath all the noise was a serious conversation about responsibility, image, and how actions can be interpreted when you live under constant public attention. Whether Justin intended it or not, his post looked like a statement about masculinity and control, and coming right after Hailey's emotional confession, it felt awkward and jarring. Not long after that, Justin added another layer of mystery. He posted a black and white selfie with a short but puzzling caption. "Broke another olive branch?" The phrase seemed to point toward another failed attempt at reconciliation. But reconciliation with who? Fans immediately began speculating. Was it about Hailey? Was it connected to a friend, a family member, or maybe business relationships he had been distancing himself from? There had already been reports suggesting that Justin was pulling away from certain circles to focus on personal growth. If that was true, then his caption could have been a reflection of the cost of setting boundaries, wanting peace, but realizing that every choice to protect yourself can feel like breaking something fragile. Justin himself has often admitted that he is still a work in progress. He once said he can be selfish and impatient, but thanked God for continuing to have patience with him. When you place that next to the image of him with a rifle and his cryptic message about olive branches, it paints a picture of a man constantly swinging between extremes. He shows strength, but also fragility, pride, but also regret, prayer, but also performance. And that constant swing is difficult. Not just to watch from the outside, but to live on the inside. Real growth is rarely neat or polished. It's messy, filled with contradictions, uncomfortable choices, and painful self-realizations. For fans, the hardest part is being pulled along for that journey in real time. People follow celebrities for entertainment, inspiration, or a little escape from their own lives. Not to decode symbols and cryptic captions, but when the symbols involve guns, struggles, and confessions, the weight feels heavier. Maybe Justin's photo wasn't meant to mean anything at all. Maybe it was just one random picture from a weekend in the woods. But timing changes everything. When your wife has just bared her soul about how fragile she feels, posting a cool gun photo can come across as careless or even dismissive. That's the paradox of living in the spotlight. Intentions may be quiet, but appearances are loud. Hailey's post resonated because it was raw and real. She admitted she wasn't prepared for how much motherhood would shake her. She expressed that even though she loves her child deeply, it doesn't erase the grief for the life she left behind. That honesty struck a chord with people because it reflected reality. Real life is messy. It's about admitting that blessings can still feel heavy, that love doesn't cancel out exhaustion, and that joy can exist alongside struggle. So how do you balance a mother's open confession with a father's stark, weapon-filled image? Maybe you don't. Maybe you simply accept that people cope in very different ways. Some people talk, some write, some cry, some pray, some hold their child, and others hold on to something heavy to feel strong. That doesn't erase the uncomfortable optics of Justin's post, but it does remind us that both are human. Still, Justin's choice carries weight because, in today's world, guns aren't neutral. They are symbols of violence and control. And when placed against Hailey's tender moment of vulnerability, the clash was impossible to ignore. That's the unspoken agreement between celebrities and the public. Fans feel invested because they've been invited into big life moments. Weddings, music, health struggles, faith, and now parenthood. So when their stories suddenly split in two different directions, Hailey speaking softly about her struggles and Justin projecting toughness, the audience doesn't just watch, they react. They try to make sense of it because people crave a story that feels complete. When it doesn't fit together, they assign roles. One must be the victim, the other the villain. It's easier than holding two truths at once, but maybe both truths are real. Hailey can be exhausted yet glowing. Justin can be thoughtful yet reckless. Both can be trying, each in their own way. That caption about the olive branch cut deep because it hinted at failure without offering details. Anyone who has tried to fix something only to watch it crumble understands that pain. You wonder if you're the one breaking it, or if the bridge was never strong enough to carry you both. When Justin wrote "broke another olive branch," the internet immediately tied it to marriage because that's the loudest narrative surrounding him. But his life extends far beyond romance. His world revolves around friends, collaborators, and teams. If he truly is learning to set limits, then that phrase could just as easily reflect the difficulty of boundaries. No one learns balance overnight. At first, they're too soft, then too harsh, until eventually they settle into something steady. Step back, and the bigger picture emerges. Two young people trying to rebuild their identities under constant public scrutiny. Hailey is being reshaped by motherhood, while Justin is juggling fatherhood, faith, fame, and the weight of his past. Those shifts collided online, creating a split-screen narrative that fueled assumptions. The raw questions underneath are universal. How do you support someone when you're growing at different speeds? How do you share your truth when you're still figuring it out yourself? And what do you owe millions of strangers who believe they deserve answers because you've shared pieces of your life before? Timing played its part. If Justin had shared his woodland photos earlier, they might have passed quietly, but posted right after Hailey's heartfelt confession, you can see looked like a direct response rather than a random moment. That's the tricky math of celebrity life. It's not just what you post, but when you post it. There's also a cultural layer. Men are often taught to mask fear with strength, so a gun becomes a prop for control. Women, by contrast, are expected to share struggles gently. Raw, but not too raw. Hailey's post struck that delicate balance, and the internet rewarded her openness. Justin's, lacking context, looked reckless. Online, growth is celebrated only when it's neatly packaged. Silent battles rarely get the same grace. So, where do they go from here? The path forward isn't mysterious, but it is difficult. Clear communication, smarter timing, and better alignment between private reality and public image. For Justin, that might mean explaining controversial posts or saving them for private circles. For Hailey, it might mean deciding which parts of motherhood belong online and which should remain private. And for both, remembering that Instagram isn't therapy, it's a distorted mirror. Sometimes stepping back isn't weakness, it's survival. The rifle image lingers because it felt unnecessary, because it clashed with Justin's usual prayers and reflections, and because the internet doesn't forget. If he truly wants to show growth, it won't come from cryptic captions. It will come from patterns. Patterns that hold, not break. Justin and Hailey are simply two young people under intense pressure, learning parenthood and partnership without privacy or a manual. They'll get things right, they'll get things wrong, and the world will keep watching. But maybe the fairest way to see them is the simplest. They're figuring it out, just like the rest of us.